Today, we'll talk about this. DJI Air 3, the latest drone from DJI. I've seen a couple of short reviews over the past few days since this was launched, and I've seen people say there's nothing new. There are many things that are from other drones that are jammed into one drone. Well, this is new, because many things that join together in this class of drones is new. And they are wrong. There is something new, and it is significant. A stacked sensor. We'll talk about this in detail. In case you don't know who we are TechMission. We are the leading Arabic-speaking gear review channel. You can find our original Arabic channel up there and down there. Today, we are starting to create content in English. Are you interested? Show us some love by liking, subscribing, and commenting. And let's go. So, DJI Air 3, the latest from DJI and the first in the Air series and in this class that has a stacked sensor for the main camera, a second camera on the gimbal, fastest ascend and descend with 10 meters per second, making it faster than the Mavic 3 Pro, omnidirectional sensors for obstacle avoidance for the first time in the Air series, longest travel range with 10 kilometers in this region and 20 in the US with the 04 transmission technology, latest RC, the latest generation, and longitudinal filming for social media, although through a crop. So many things to talk about and so many things to cover in this video, so stay tuned and let's start with design. In design, the drone is not that much different from previous generations of different drones. It is, however, noticeable that the gimbal is protruding forward to allow for upward shooting. Compared to the previous generation of the Air series, we immediately notice that there are two cameras on the gimbal. The top one is the Telephoto one or mid-Telephoto one, equivalent to 70 mm. The bottom one is the main one, and it is equivalent to 24, and it comes with a new stacked sensor. The Fly More combo includes the drone itself, the RC2, the cradle with two additional batteries, and it has a very special feature that I'll tell you about in just a little bit, propellers, more propellers, and this beautiful bag. The bag is beautifully designed, and it's not nearly as complicated as the Mavic 3 Classics bag. The cradle has a new feature, very, very helpful. If you have 3 batteries not fully charged, you put them in the cradle, you do not connect anything, long press on the power, and it will draw the power from the 2 batteries with lesser charge to the 1 battery with higher charge. You will end up with a full battery or however your charge allows, but you will end up with all your remaining charge in 1 battery. Very, very helpful. The RC2 is not very different from previous generations, but it is, however, different in technology. In design, it's the same thing that we had before. We have the power button, mode switch, return home or brake button. We have the beautiful screen that allows us to control the drone through its Android interface. We have record and shutter buttons in the front, 2 customizable buttons in the bottom, and the SD card slot and USB-C port in the back. The drone, along with the RC2 and your mobile phone with the DJI app, support quick transfer directly from the drone to your phone. Regarding battery, DJI is saying it's 46 minutes of flight time, and the number is accurate from my experience. Now, let's compare that to the Mini 3 Pro that flies 34 minutes with a regular battery, 47 minutes, granted, with the plus battery, but that's an additional thing that will make it not a Mini. It will exceed the 249 grams. The Mavic 3 Pro flies 43 minutes. The Air 2S flies 32 minutes something. And now the Air 3 flies 46 minutes, making it the longest range, except for the Mini 3 Pro with the Plus battery, which again I consider a special case. So longest range, and I did test that. I tested it thoroughly in my trip to Georgia. I didn't go beyond 4 kilometers because that's the local regulations. And quite frankly, I was flying downwind, which was a mistake. I should have flown upwind, but the view was much nicer downwind. So I went downwind, and I didn't want the drone to have trouble reaching me with a weaker battery upwind if I went beyond 4 kilometers. So I went 4 kilometers, came back, the battery was still more than half full, no, way more than half full. And the transmission was crystal clear throughout the trip. There was absolutely nothing wrong with the connection. The video was crystal clear, the connection was very strong. There was nothing to complain about with my drone 4 kilometers away from me. DJI has achieved this with a new technology, new generation of its OcuSync technology. It's O4. And O4 allows a longer range both in the FCC and the CE geographic areas. Now, since in the Gulf region we follow the European CE standards, we get 10 kilometers of range. I haven't tested that, but I bet it requires direct eye line between you and the drone. And quite frankly, I don't think anybody should fly their drone this far, 10 kilometers. It's against the regulations anyway, and you never know what will happen on the way back. The battery could do anything. For me, the 4 kilometers that I flew were fantastic. Let me compare this drone to the others in terms of transmission and range. OcuSync 2, or the O2 as DJI is calling it now, seen in Air 2 and Mini 2, gives us a 10 kilometers range in FCC countries, 6 kilometer range in CE countries. O3 in Air 2S gives us a 12 kilometer range in FCC countries, 8 kilometers in CE countries. O3 Plus, seen in Mavic 3, 3 Pro and 3 Classic, gives us a 15 kilometer range in FCC countries, 8 kilometers in CE countries. O4, currently only seen in Air 3, gives us a 20 kilometers range in FCC countries and a 10 kilometers range in CE countries. And now we come to intelligent flight. And let me remind you before I go through intelligent flight options that this drone has the fastest ascent and descent. When it is in the sports mode, it goes up and down at 10 meters per second, making it faster than the Mavic 3 Pro, which flies up and down at 8 meters per second. So basically, this one is the fastest ascent and descent drone so far in the DJI lineup. And now let's talk about intelligent flight. And as you know, intelligent flight is a very, very important aspect of any drone, especially when we are flying it for videography. And for me, the intelligent flight in this drone, although nothing is new, but it is absolutely fantastic. Compared to the Mini 3 Pro, they have roughly the same intelligent flight options, but this one is a bigger drone, a much more stable drone, making it much easier for me to capture videos with this drone than with the Mini 3 Pro. Don't get me wrong, I still love the Mini 3 Pro. It is still one of my favorite drones. This one has the stability factor, and it is not a small thing to consider. Let's go back to intelligent flight, and the first thing that we need to talk about is the omnidirectional sensors. Obstacle avoidance in all directions, front, back, up, down, and sideways, so right and left. This makes intelligent flight much safer, because my concern with the Air 2S, which used to be my favorite drone, and with the Mini 3 Pro is that I don't have obstacle avoidance on the sides. So whenever I am doing a circle, whenever I'm using the point of interest option in the intelligent flight system, I am always concerned that it might hit something on the side in case I don't see where it is going. And sometimes it is a little bit far from you, so telling the distance between the drone and the obstacles next to it is a little bit difficult. This prevented me from shooting interesting shots whenever I traveled with the drones. Now with this one, I have omnidirectional, so I can trust that the drone will not hit anything while it is performing the intelligent flight option that I gave to it. Intelligent flight options are exactly the same as Mavic 3, 3 Pro and 3 Classic. We have active track, which makes the drone track something that we define, be it a car, a person, or a boat, as in the example that you see in front of you. And we get to choose the direction of the tracking. It can be from the front, the back, sideways, or any angle in between. Once we hit go, the drone tracks the boat in this example and gives us excellent footage. Tracking is excellent in large pre-programmed items like boats, people, cars, other types of vehicles, etc. But when I tried to track the parachute in this shot, the drone told me that it cannot track this kind of objects. Second option is spotlight, which means that the drone will keep the subject of our photography or videography in the center of the frame or in any other spot in the frame that we define before we start. Using the drone movement and gimbal movement, the drone will always keep the subject in the same place in the frame. This is a very helpful feature. I used it to shoot the golden statue on top of Nipton Fountain in Batumi, as well as this shot of the Alphabet Tower in Batumi as well. Third option is point of interest, which makes the drone circle the point of interest that we define and take excellent videos around it. Additionally, you get the quick shots, the master shots, the hyperlapse, many of the options that we know in other drones. Now, with the quick shots, now we can shoot 4K quick shots. This is not new, of course, because we can do quick shots in 4K in the Mavic 3 series, but it's good to have it here as well, because in the Mini 3 Pro and before that, it used to be 1080p only. Now we have 4K quick shots in this drone. The hyperlapse, of course, is a mixture between flight technology and camera technology. Basically, I always do one type of hyperlapse, which is approaching or tracking in hyperlapse. You can see this example from Batumi. It can do all the other forms of hyperlapse, define the track, whatever you want it to do, and it will shoot the hyperlapse, and you will end up with excellent results all the time. The last intelligent flight option that I want to discuss is the return to home. And this is, of course, always important in all drones. And I can tell you a story. The first drone that I ever flew was the Mavic Mini. It was still called Mavic back then. The Mini, the original Mini. I went to Mauritius with that drone, and I was still new. And the range for that drone was very limited. So at a certain point, it was like around a kilometer or something. I don't remember exactly, but I lost connection with the drone. That was my very first flight, and I thought I lost the drone, and it was the very first flight in my life. And out of the sudden, I see the drone on top coming back to me. It went back to the home point because it lost connection with the controller. I'm glad to say that the return home in this drone is just as efficient as it has always been in other DJI drones. And now let's talk about cameras, and we have so much to cover. We will talk about the two cameras, the sensor and why is it smaller than the Air 2S sensor. We'll talk about performance and quality, especially in low light. We'll talk about photography. We'll talk about videography, codecs, frame rates, all things that you need to know to shoot good videos and good photos with this drone. And let's start. We have the main camera, 24 millimeters equivalent in full frame, which is fantastic, as you know. Well, maybe the English audience doesn't know yet, but my Arabic audience in the original channel knows that 24 is my favorite travel focal length, and now I have it on my favorite drone. The Air 2S had a slightly wider lens. I did not like that very much. It had its positives, but I like the 24 much better. The sensor is 1/1.3 stacked CMOS sensor, and yes, you heard it right, stacked. It is there in the specs sheet that DJI sent me, and I tested. We have two sensors in this drone. We have 1/1.3 stacked CMOS sensor and 1/1.3 CMOS sensor in the second camera, and you can clearly tell the difference. It is absolutely a different beast. So basically, yes, it is a stacked sensor. It is giving us much faster readout and higher dynamic range, better image quality, better color rendition, and better basically everything. And I love the videos that I'm getting out of this sensor. The photos as well, but the videos in particular have a great advantage over the Air 2S, the Mini 3 Pro, and I dare to say, compared, if not better, to the Mavic 3 Classic that I also tested in Georgia. Now, I still have to shoot side by side, and this is a little bit difficult here in Dubai. As you know, currently we are not allowed to fly drones, so I travel to fly drones. I didn't take the Mavic 3 Classic with me last time I went to Georgia to review this one, so I cannot tell today the difference between the two and which one will win, but my impression so far is that this stacked sensor is giving me better video quality than the non-stacked 1-inch sensor on the Mavic 3 Classic. This is a point kept for the future. I will do the review very soon, I promise, and I'll share the results by then. So let's go back to this camera. It is giving me absolutely fantastic videos, absolutely fantastic photos. Best photos out of a drone that I have seen so far. I'm very impressed with that. You can see some examples now. And the videos are very different from anything else. If you do not know what a stacked sensor is, tell me in the comments and I'll explain it in a separate video. I have a detailed video on that in Arabic on the original channel. But if you don't know what a stack sensor is, tell me in the comments and I will explain it to you. And this brings us to the main question regarding this drone. How come the Air 2S had a 1-inch sensor and now the Air 3 has a 1/1.3 sensor? And to answer this, I mean, I cannot speak for DJI, but to answer this, I think the main issue here is that we have two cameras, so they cannot fit a larger sensor. But in reality, let's talk about what is a 1-inch sensor and what is a 1/1.3 inch sensor. The 1-inch sensor is not actually an inch, and this one is not very much different. Let's talk in numbers. The 1-inch sensor in Air 2S, Mavic 3, 3 Pro, and the 3 Classic is not a real inch. It is actually 115 squared millimeters. The Air 3 sensor is 1/1.3, which exactly means 70 square millimeters. So in size, the sensor we have in Air 2S, Mavic 3, 3 Pro, and 3 Classic is 1.5 times larger than the sensor in Air 3. But being a stacked sensor, it is really compensating for this difference in size. This is very clear in video on photo quality, and you cannot miss it. I shot these examples in Batumi. No D-Log, no 10-bit, no manual settings. The camera is in full auto, both in exposure and in focus. And as you can see, we have beautiful colors, saturated colors, attractive colors, not far from reality colors. Resolution and contrast are also nice, and the videos are fun to watch. They were fun to shoot as well. Dynamic range is very decent, as you can see in this shot directly against the sun. The night video mode in this drone is very efficient. These are the shots without any coloring or any modifications from my side. I did not denoise, I did not even play with the shadows and highlights. As you can see, this is beautiful night footage, and much better than any other drone that I tried. Save the Mavic 3 Classic, the comparison is still pending. Now, one important point about night mode you should know. A, the sensors don't work, the obstacle avoidance does not work, so you have to be responsible for the drone not crashing. Don't rely on the sensors. They are visual sensors, they are not radars, so they cannot do anything at night. They cannot see anything at night. It's on you to prevent the drone from crashing. Number two, in many countries around the world, including the UAE here, when flying drones was legal, you're not allowed to fly at night because of the risk of crashing and the risk to others. So please be mindful of the local regulations wherever you want to fly your drone. Let's now talk about the second camera. It's a 70mm equivalent in full frame, mid-telephoto, f2.8. It's a 3x zoom over the main camera. To see the difference in field of view between the main camera and the second camera, take a look at this. This is the main camera, and this is the second camera. This is nice, because the difference between a wide angle and a mid-telephoto is not limited to field of view. It also has to do with compression. When we shoot mid-telephoto, we take shots with compressed backgrounds, which makes it really beautiful, especially when we are doing the circle or any other sort of moving shots. On the other hand, there is safety. If we are shooting something that we should not get closer to, like the parachute in this case, the additional reach that the mid-telephoto offers helps. Personally, I don't think I will use it much because I prefer to reserve my quality with a stacked sensor, but whenever I need to use it, I'm very happy to use it. The quality that I'm getting out of this camera is absolutely good, but it is not as good as the main camera. Now let's talk about the main annoyance that I have in this camera, in the camera system on this drone. The only thing that I really don't like is the fixed aperture. And I understand DJI has always preserved the variable aperture to their Mavic Pro basically series. Now we have it on the Mavic 3, 3 Pro and 3 Classic. And we had it on the Mavic series since the beginning. Now I have f1.7 fixed on the main camera, 2.8 fixed on the second camera. And I understand DJI wants to preserve the night performance, the low light performance. I understand that. However, I wish they give me an f4 and I would tolerate lower performance in low light. I wish they given me a variable f-stop, of course, but my problem is that I didn't have ND filters, and of course the drone is shooting at really high shutter speeds, and this will not affect the cinematic feel. This is not what I'm worried about, but it does one way or another affect the performance of the drone whenever it is closer to the object, like when you're trying to capture the movements of the waves, or you are in a street and you want to capture the movement of the buildings around you. So I think we'll be able to solve this whenever they come up with an ND filter system. But until then, I wish at least 2.8 would have been fine. I'm not going to complain much about this point. I understand the variable f-stop is preserved for the Mavic. I get it, DJI, no problem, but I am deducting points for this. And now let's talk about codecs and frame rates. And we have pretty much everything that we need in this regard. Let's see. In codecs and frame rates, we have 4K up to 100 FPS, 4K 30 FPS in night mode, 4K 60 FPS in HDR, D-Log with 10-bit, HLG, 1080 up to 200 FPS. In codecs, we have H.264 and H.265. And now back to photography, and I am very happy with the results that I'm getting out of this drone. I had this habit ever since I flew the Mini, the original Mini. I was not very impressed with the photo quality at all. So I became used to not taking photos from up there, and this is a bad habit. Now I remind myself constantly, whenever you are flying the drone, take a moment to take photos. And I ended up with real nice photos, samples of which you can see on screen as I speak. And it shoots 16:9, it shoots 4:3, it shoots JPEG, DNG for RAW, it shoots dual, both of them together, and it gives you really good results, or let's just say significantly better results than the Air 2S and then any other drone except for the Mavic 3 series. And of course, we have all the panorama options. I enjoy shooting panorama. I don't always use the results because they are always way too wide, and on Instagram or social media in general, they are not really usable, but I enjoy looking at them whenever I travel, especially to Georgia. And I took a few panorama shots, as you can see. Not very useful as a photographer, but very much fun to shoot and to look at later, especially years from the time when you shot them. And as I mentioned in my intro, it shoots longitudinal videos and photos, for that matter, for social media, for Instagram and TikTok in particular, but it doesn't do it by tilting the gimbal like the Mini 3 Pro. It actually does it by cropping on the sensor, which is why we cannot shoot 4K in this mode. It is reserved for 2.7K and 1080 16:9 aspect ratio. If you choose these from the menu, you will automatically get longitudinal videos. And the thing is, you're getting really good quality. You really don't need 4K for social media, especially TikTok and Instagram. They will downgrade anyway, downscale anyway. But it is really good to have it. I don't know. I'll give it a try later, but I don't think that I will shoot in this mode. I would if a client asked me to, but for my own fun, I think I'll just shoot and then crop later. I don't know. Probably I should give it a try. Probably the tracking will keep the object or the subject, let me say, in the middle of the cropped area, so I don't have to worry about that. I think I'll give it a good try in my next trip, and I'll tell you the results by then. In the UAE, the drone is priced as follows. DJI Air 3 with the RC N2, $1,099 US. DJI Air 3 Fly More Combo with the DJI RC N2, $1,299 US. DJI Air 3 Fly More Combo with the DJI RC 2, $1,459 US. DJI RC 2 alone, $343 US. To sum up, it's very hard to sum up because we have so much to sum up, but I can sum up by saying this is my new favorite drone. My original favorite drone was the Air 2S. The Mini 3 Pro took a little bit of the glory for a while. I love the Mavic 3 Classic, don't get me wrong, I just love it. But the size and the convenience of carrying it, and I don't like the bag very much. This bag is much nicer. But this one is today my favorite drone, and if I travel tomorrow anywhere for fun or for work, this is the drone that I'm taking with me. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe before you go. Don't forget to show us some love with a like and a comment. And if you want more content from us in English, do tell us in the comments below. I would also ask you to subscribe to our original Arabic channel and see us on social media. And see you soon in the next video. And cut.